of Asian Institute for Diplomacy and International Affairs, I'd like to welcome you all to today's dialogue on foreign affairs on the topic the Indian Prime Minister's visit to Nepal, its significance in the bilateral relations. Introducing our guests for today, our first guest is Dr.Dattesh Parulekar. He is an assistant professor of International Relations Department at Goa University. He is a visiting member of AIDIA as well as the spokesperson for the Foreign Affairs Cell at Bharatiya Janata Party. Our second guest for today is Mr. Karki. He's a member of the Parliament, the former Foreign Relations Department Chief of UCPN Maoist, the organization that's hosting today's event, Asian Institute for Diplomacy and International Affairs. AIDIA is an emerging think tank that believes in a very interactive way of research, addressing everyday issues in South Asia and working to support the Nepali government in sectors of international affairs. We have Dr. Dattesh with us now. Karki. Now I'd like to invite Mr. Sunil Casey, the CEO and founder of AIDIA, to welcome everyone to the event.
Welcome everyone. It's my great pleasure to welcome you here in our monthly dialogue series, Dialogue on International Affairs. We have with us Dr. Dattesh Parulekar, who is an international affairs professor at Goa University. He is also associated with Asian Institute of Diplomacy and International Affairs as a visiting faculty member. He is also a spokesperson at Bharatiya Janata Party in Foreign Affairs Cells. And then we have with us Honorable Member of Parliament, Mr. Karki, who is very popular in Nepal. And then he is a ex-Foreign Relations Committee head of UCPN Maoist Party. Today we are going to discuss about Indian PM Modi's upcoming visit, significance in bilateral relations, because we have had no high-level visit from India since 15 years. A high-level visit always gives a very importance in bilateral relation to maintain the relationship between two countries in terms of economy, in terms of politics, in terms of culture and social status. And then we tried to organize this seminar today, and then been talking to discuss more on about international affairs and diplomacy here in Nepal, because most of the activities and discussion went on politics and in other sectors. But we people are not much more covering the issues of diplomacy and international affairs, and then we took an initiation. First in Nepal, and then Asian Institute of Diplomacy and International Affairs is trying to support the government of Nepal, the political parties, and other leaders as well as in the areas of diplomacy and international affairs. It's a great honor for AIDIA to get a prominent figure from Nepal and India. Again, I would like to give much more thanks who are here to listen and to dialogue on about India-Nepal relation. Thank you very much.
Before starting the dialogue, I'd like to request everyone to lead this dialogue to a more intellectual direction than political. This upcoming state visit of Narendra Modi is the first state visit of an Indian Prime Minister to Nepal in the last 15 years. So we hope that this dialogue will be mutually beneficial. Now I'd like to invite Mr.Radheshyam Malla on stage, who will be moderating today's event.
And it's my pleasure to be invited here as a moderator today. And I remember now what my mother said when I was small, Dr. Parulekar. My mother said that try to be always in between the people who know a lot. And even if you commit mistakes, they correct you and you will learn a lot of things. So I feel that I'm so much privileged enough to be among erudite people actually. And even if I make mistakes, because it's a diplomatic talk we are having here, and small issues can make a huge difference in this context, so that you would be taking it as a minor mistake and helping me develop myself in the field of diplomatic missions, actually. So thank you once again, AIDA, for letting me work as a moderator today. And I am so much privileged. And thank you so much, Dr. Parulekar and Mr. Karki, and getting ready to get my questions, actually. Thank you so much. All right, shall I begin? All right, so as we know that, Indian Prime Minister Modi is expected to come very soon to Nepal, and we are so much happy that Prime Minister Modi will help a lot in terms of making our Nepal something different, something important here. And my first question to Dr. Parulekar is, what significance, Dr. Parulekar, you think this visit to Nepal of Modi will be in terms of making this bilateral relation something significant and something important?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Let me at the outset just take a few seconds in making some preliminary remarks. I want to clarify that I'm here really in my personal capacity. I'm professionally an academic, but I'm also associated with the BJP, which is in power now. I don't hold a brief for the government, nor am I speaking for the Prime Minister or the government. So much of my views will really be in my personal capacity, and I would appreciate if that is taken in that context and we can have a good dialogue in that sense. Yeah. So coming to the context of Modi ji, there's no doubt that ever since he has come to office, he has captured the imagination not just of the Indian people, but of the global community. In fact, the way in which he's being received around the world, for us Indians, is quite amazing and unprecedented. We have not seen an Indian Prime Minister being wanted so fervently by the whole world as it's being done. Everyone's looking forward to his visit to Nepal, and I think the principal reason for that is the way in which he has shown his commitment and his conviction in re-engaging the neighborhood. Having talked to him informally many times, I know this for a fact that he was extremely pained at the way in which the state of our relations were with our neighbors. Over the best part of the past decade, our relations with our neighbors has either been antagonistic or outrightly hostile, or in some cases in a kind of estrangement in disrepair. And this ought not to have been the case, because for any major power in the world, if its neighborhood is on fire, or if its neighborhood is restive, then that country really has a lot of work to do. You go and see anywhere in the world and you will realize that the utmost priority that any major power accords is to the neighborhood. So in that context, when he took that unprecedented step of inviting all the SAARC leaders for his swearing in, it was a masterstroke. But coming from a man whose convictions are very clear that he wants to engage the neighborhood. If you see, his first foreign visit was to Bhutan, again to the neighborhood, even though Japan was on the anvil, but he chose the neighborhood. And he's in fact made it very clear to your Prime Minister when he met him after the swearing in that he looks forward to coming to Nepal at the earliest possible date. Not only that, at different points in time he has mentioned that he would like to specifically help Nepal in some of its key structural problems. When I mean structural problems, I don't mean democracy or polity, I essentially mean economy. Because if you know the background of this man, he is somebody who believes that economic diplomacy is the key to all kinds of diplomacy in the world. This is the world which is marked by interdependence and interconnectedness. And even the worst of allies, or even the worst of enemies for that matter, if there is mutual equity and if there is economic cooperation, they are compelled to do away with conflict and to veer towards peace.
I was coming to the very question that you started that. We were going to talk about economic diplomacy of Dr. Prime Minister Modi, and he's very good at keeping things and see it from economics point of view. Dr. Parulekar, could you please tell us how does that economic diplomacy that Modi is trying to carry on, put forward, would help Nepal in context of making our Nepal a prosperous country, because we are the neighboring country of India itself.
When you look at South Asia, Nepal is no exception. What is the first thing that comes to mind for a person, either inside South Asia or outside? It's a large scale of underdevelopment. It's a case of lack of infrastructure development. It's a case of poverty. right? It's a case of joblessness. So these are the typical stereotypes that we see in most of our countries, Nepal included. So what he has been saying very clearly is, I would like to offer some concrete, tangible projects to Nepal and commit India's investment in Nepal in infrastructural projects which can not just create assets for you in terms of infrastructure and improve people's lives, but also be able to create meaningful jobs for Nepalese people, to be able to bring in investment so that Nepal as a country is seen as a congenial investment destination, but to do it in a manner that retains Nepal's identity and its ecology. So for instance, he has talked in terms of projects surrounding tourism, projects surrounding hydropower, projects surrounding green energy, in terms of physical infrastructure, social infrastructure like schools, like hospitals, like higher education institutes. These are extremely important for a small country, an underdeveloped country, to be able to rise as a proud nation.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Parulekar. Now, I would like to put my question forward to Mr. Karki. Mr. Karki, what do you think the significance of Modi's visit to Nepal? Because it's been about 17 years we have not seen Indian Prime Minister coming to Nepal, and it would be the Modi himself who is willing to come after 17 years. What would be the significance of this visit in the context of bilateral relations?
Thank you. Though I am very comfortable in Nepali, but I think here I would like to speak in English. And my English is not that academic, because I was never enrolled in college, Whatever I did, I studied myself. Even then, see, the first thing in terms of India-Nepal bilateral relation, we were lacking political dialogue, because the political leadership was totally absent from 1997. No Indian Prime Minister visited Nepal.
Yes.
Every year we have 3-4 Prime Minister, and every Prime Minister visits India. So political dialogue is most important thing, because once the political leadership is a dependent bureaucracy, then the volume of bureaucracy that becomes the vital thing, because the Indian bureaucracy is very big, and our bureaucracy is just creeping, just learning. So, and one more thing, there is no institutional relation between political parties of India and of Nepal. We just here is a Nepali Congress, there is a Indian National Congress, but they don't have institutional relation. Nepali Congress had some good relation with some socialists. They are fragmented in India. Some socialists are with AIDIA, some socialists are with UPA, but they have not maintained that relation. In the case of communists also, the Communist Party of Nepal had a good relation with the Communist Party in India, but that could not be maintained. So there is no institutional relation between the political parties of Nepal and India. So now we are looking forward that a strong political leadership is there, present in India now. So it is a big opportunity for Nepal to continue to prevail the political relation, the political dialogue, the political challenge. So that will be executed by bureaucracy. So there will be a political decision, there will be a political relation. So we are looking forward.
Mr. Karki, are you trying to say that Modi's visit will help bring all the political parties of Nepal together and let the bureaucracy work faster and stronger? Do you mean that?
See, it's the demand of the time that we have to check out what are our national interests that we can put forward before our friends. Because if you see the case of Lagos, it is a bit different from international relation. You know? The neighbors had a very specific relation, and it should be dealt in a specific horizon. In the case of Nepal, many times we have fought against China and India, and many times, several times, we had made trust, we had agreement, because we are neighbors. We have to deal anyway. So if there is a clarity, political clarity among the political leadership, whether you differ in many cases, politically, ideologically, but you can sit together and you can have a dialogue, you can put forward your national interest, your priorities, and you can continue your relationship.
Have you discussed among the political parties of Nepal so far before Modi's visit here? And have you come to the consensus that when Modi comes, and then you'll be going with single agenda or common agenda to talk about political interest or let us say the national interest of that? Have there been any practices so far?
So, in my capacity, several times I have tried for that, to bring together all political party leadership together to check out this program. Because until and unless we can come together, these are our national interests, these are our priorities. We are always talking about hydroelectricity, tourism, but once a foreign friend asks us, where should we invest first? We have so many rivers, but what is our priority? So first, the political leadership should come together and check out what are our national interests and priorities. In that respect, the government should do something, because now Nepali Congress and UML are in the government, but from our side, we'll try our best before.
Does that mean that, okay, UCPN Maoist is trying to turn its deaf ear towards the effort government has made?
Pardon?
Does it mean that UCPN Maoist is trying to turn its deaf ear towards the initiation that government has taken? Or you are also trying your best to put some initiatives or let's say some feedback so that it can be the, let's say visit will be something very much important?
See, when I was the chief of our international department, many times I organized such a program, and I invited Nepali Congress people, UML people, even people from Madesi parties, the French party, to reach to that conclusion that what are our national interests and what should we put forward before our foreign friends.
Let me come back to Dr. Parulekar. Dr. Parulekar, what do you think, like, since he's coming, a Prime Minister from India is coming after only 17 years, not as an individual but as an institution. So what do you think, what agendas need to be common so that we will work not as big brother and small brother, rather we will work together, we will join hands and work forward together. What agendas need to come together and then should have kind of agreement between the countries so that there is no enmity at all, there is always friendship, there is always peaceful environment. We shouldn't be going for backbiting and criticizing kind of things. What do you think?
See, as a matter of fact, India-Nepal relations are marked by the fact of asymmetry. There's a huge deal of asymmetry in the size, in the scale, and the potential, etc. But Modi ji believes very strongly that this asymmetry is not a challenge, it should be an opportunity. It should be an opportunity for India to reach out to Nepal, and in Modi ji you will find a person who's extremely sensitive, who's accommodating, and who would like to base relations with Nepal going forward on the principles of mutual respect, on the principles of shared concerns, and on the principles of shared aspirations. If you see Modi ji's campaign, his entire campaign can be summarized in one word: aspirational campaign. His message was always positive, and his message was such which nobody can quibble about. Whether it's a youngster in Nepal or it's a youngster in India. Today, what do countries want? Countries want development. Countries want infrastructure. Countries want jobs. Countries want higher incomes. All that leads to progress and development. And having spoken to him, and this is the fervent belief of the BJP as well, that we would like to develop cross-border infrastructure projects. Because what that does is when you have cross-border infrastructure projects, which are in Nepal and India, you create not just infrastructure projects, you actually create mutual equities, which means it becomes a joint responsibility for both sides to see that that particular infrastructure project works seamlessly. Because if it doesn't, both sides will be hurt. Both sides will be worse off. And that is why when he talks about the hydroelectric projects, it is not in some way as sounding very patronizing, or sometimes the message unfortunately has been construed in such a way that maybe India is going to have some kind of clamp down on hydropower projects. But actually he has talked of something like the Eastern Energy Corridor, where he speaks about how these hydroelectric projects, which Nepal can develop, will not only help Nepal deal with its distressing power crisis, but actually allow Nepal to export its surplus power, be able to earn revenue for that, and that power will actually power up and light up homes across Eastern India. Now, if that can be a successful project, there's nothing like it. As I've been telling, and I'm just taking another minute for this, but it's a very important example. I was suggesting to some other people when I was discussing yesterday. I see a lot of similarities in another initiative which was thought of, like the Iran-Pakistan-India gas pipeline, sometime back. And this was an initiative that Iran and India had thought of, in which Pakistan was going to be an important player. And why was it thought of? All of us countries, we are facing energy security crisis. We have energy deficit. And we need all kinds of energy we require. Now, if a gas pipeline were to come from Iran through Pakistan into India, you see what it can do. On the one hand, it will help us, both India and Pakistan, deal with the energy crisis. But if it works successfully, it can be a huge fillip for India-Pakistan relations. The dividend and spin-off can be so good that it can actually be a paradigm-shifting move. Tragically, it didn't happen. But something along these lines is also being thought of by Modi ji. So he is looking at projects, whether it's in the case of infrastructure, whether in the case of tourism, whether in the case of skill development, which can actually benefit the popular person on the Nepalese street, and which can also pay dividends to India in terms of bringing the people closer. India benefits, Nepal benefits, it's a mutual win-win situation, the region benefits.
Okay, thank you so much. Now let me ask Mr. Karki. Mr. Karki, so far, what do you think, what agendas need to be raised, which will further strengthen the relation between Nepal and India, since visit is considered to be one of the significant visits of Prime Minister Modi?
See, Nepal is in a transition period. We have an institutionalized democracy. And one more thing, we need sympathy, cooperation from our immediate neighbors to draft constitution in time and to institutionalize this democracy and develop it forward. So, because we are in a transitional period, in such a juncture, many times when Rana were fleeing from Nepal, at that time there was an agreement there was a treaty between Nepal and India. So that should be reviewed one day. But the neighbors should assist in such a juncture, not to reap the benefit in such a critical juncture. So I don't think in this first visit we'll have a big treaty, big agreement, but it will be an initiation of good relation. And we have to, first also, previously also I just mentioned that these are our priorities that we have to put forward before India. Even if we just have a hydro project, only India can buy it. If we generate sufficient power, then India has to buy it. So this will be a beginning of good relation, and this should be continued in political political level.
Okay, let me take a break from my side, and I would be expecting from audience to ask questions. Since it is diplomatic issue, so we would expect you to be very gentle. Your question would be so much good enough to maintain the relation that will further strengthen our relation. So let me kindly request you to pass question. Yeah, microphone, please. And we kindly request you to introduce yourself before you ask questions.
I'm Professor M.P. Rohde. welcome you to Kathmandu. Reference was just made to the last visit of the Indian Prime Minister, Mr. I.K. Gujral, in 1997. You know, Mr. Gujral, when he became Prime Minister, he initiated some sort of new policy called Gujral Doctrine. This doctrine was based upon relations with neighbors on the basis of non-reciprocity. And it was welcomed by all neighboring countries. And when he visited Nepal, you know, Nepal had been all the time trying to have a land route between Nepal and Bangladesh. Of course, there is what is called Fulbari connection, and somehow, you know, Nepal had not succeeded in getting cooperation from India for this route. During Gujral's visit to Nepal, he took a very prompt decision, and the land route was opened. That was his contribution. So in the same way, you also refer to some concrete projects that may come up for decision during the upcoming visit of Prime Minister Modi. So I think we all welcome it. We also refer to how Prime Minister Modi took the initiative to invite all SAARC heads of state and government at the swearing-in ceremony. I think that was a good start, and this initiative has been lauded by all neighboring countries. This morning, I was attending a seminar on this realizing the vision of South Asia as a union, and there were several delegates from SAARC countries, and they also, you know, touched upon this theme of Modi's rise in India, and every delegate from neighboring countries has been high hope on Prime Minister Modi's initiative. So you have also, now we are expecting, you said concrete projects. You have, of course, hydropower is one. Can you mention a few more concrete projects? Thank you.
The question is intended to Dr. Parulekar. Dr. Parulekar, what do you think about this issue Dr. has raised?
I think 2 or 3 important points have been raised, so let me just dwell on that a little bit. First, about the Gujral Doctrine. Obviously, when governments function, they function in a continuum. So one government yields to another, and governments proceed from there. So it's not to quibble or to, you know, deprecate what happened before. But the point is, I think there was a fundamental disconnect in the way in which the Gujral Doctrine was conceived and the way in which it was sought to be operationalized. And this is an important point because in my meetings with various political leaders, I've been trying to, you know, kind of mention this, that given the fact that there is this glaring asymmetry between India and all its neighbors in terms of size, but given the fact that India is the only country which has a land or a maritime border with every other neighbor, it means India is a centripetal force. India is a common factor in the region. And that is why when we base our relations on state-to-state relations on the basis of reciprocity, India, for its part, needs to also understand what that reciprocity will entail. For example, if India has to formalize an outreach with Nepal on a certain issue, and India walks, say, 4 steps or walks 3 steps, I don't think it is realistic on the part of the Indian establishment to expect Nepal to walk 3 equal steps at the same time. Right? That would be an extremely unreasonable proposition. And if that kind of a tit-for-tat thing is done, then what happens is, in the end, nothing materializes. There needs to be statesmanship. What is statesmanship? Statesmanship is the ability of a leadership to be imaginative, to have a breakthrough idea. I mean, let's look at European Union. We talk of South Asia here and we grimace at the fact that we have relations which are torturous. But have we gone through wars the way European countries have gone to war? And yet in the post-conflict phase, look how through statesmanship and imagination and innovativeness, they realize that what unites them is more important than what divides them. And today they've reached a stage where they have a European Monetary Union, they have a single currency, they have a Schengen agreement whereby you can go to 20-odd countries with one visa. Are these not realistic goals for us to think of as members of South Asia? So in that regard, it's very important. That is where I feel that Modi ji is in a position to be able to lay out a roadmap whereby South Asia can look at better days, number one. In terms of the specific projects, I would hold horses on naming projects for a simple reason. One, because I'm not in government, so I'm not aware of exactly what negotiations are currently on, and I would not like to prejudge the negotiations that are going on at the official level. However, let me say this. Modi ji has been very clear, and he conveyed this to Prime Minister Koirala, that it is not for us to suggest projects to you. Because then what will happen is, it will still be seen as some kind of an imposition being laid by India. And probably India has something to gain from that project, so India is pushing Nepal down that path. We would like you all, since you all are on the path of democracy, in a democracy there are different shades of public opinion. You come to internal consensus on which 2-3 projects are most important, which are doable, right? People can see the outcomes and suggest them to Modi ji when he comes, and I'm sure he will be most keen in terms of taking them forward. So let Nepal's democracy celebrate itself. Let them come together. Let them articulate their aspirations, and let us see how India and Nepal can.
I am Sridhar Gautam, IT section, a professor at Tribal University. First of all, I would like to begin with Dr. Parulekar's your observation. I fully agree with you that no country can be prosperous if it doesn't have Buddhism, which is native country. I fully agree with you. And in the South Asia, of course, India is the biggest country, and it has, of course, regional power, and also going to be emerging, let's say, one of the world powers. There is one conception among India's neighboring countries that whenever other neighboring countries enter into any in a treaty or something, and always India takes more and gives less, and there is no win-win situation. India takes more. That's a kind of conception, and India does not recognize the smaller countries. The countries should recognize India as a power, but at the same time, India should also recognize the small countries. So we will be on an equal basis. That is a feeling among countries. And very frequently we hear Indian leaders that when that, for example, that only in Bhutan is closer to India, other countries are not closer to India, and that in Nepal also there is going activity of other countries. They take the name of China. So why should India think that only Bhutan is closer to it? What is lacking in India? Why in Sri Lanka? Why Pakistan? Why Bangladesh? Why Nepal? So do you think that the present leadership, present government of India would erase this concept and into project which would give these countries also, and there will be win-win situation, and how to erase and how to take this country into confidence that yes, India is not a big brotherly. Big brother country doesn't behave big brotherly way. It gives also, it listens also, and always the win-win situation. Do you think that this leadership will erase this misconception? Thank you.
Dr. It's very interesting, to challenging question quickly things. Of course, even if India has done or is expecting to do a lot of kind of things, sometimes these kind of feelings emerge. Where they do come from and how they are into existence could be something matter of research. But since you are talking in a personal capacity, what do you think to address the question of?
Yeah, I think a number of good questions were raised, and I have quite good confidence that you will see a paradigm shift in the way in which this government functions. Just take into account the fact how this government has moved so far. In the last 7 weeks, if you see, the engagement with its neighborhood has been something which actually is extremely unprecedented, because what Modi ji had spoken about was really engaging the globe. And yet, if you see, he's already traveled to Bhutan. The foreign minister has traveled to Bangladesh. The vice president traveled to China. And now you're going to have the foreign minister visiting Nepal. You're going to have the home minister visiting Nepal. The prime minister will come here shortly, right? You're already having a meeting now in Colombo where the foreign minister is going. So it's quite clear that India's new government is full of conviction that its neighborhood will be proactively dialed in, proactively engaged. However, having said that, a few things I think we all have to dispel these notions. I'm sure when notions establish themselves for 60 odd years, it's difficult to wipe them out in a single day. And I don't believe that a pronouncement can wipe things out. Ultimately, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And so ultimately, the test of all these pronouncements is not pronouncements. The test of all these pronouncements will be action on the ground. And the good thing is, Mr. Modi is somebody who is an actionable man. In fact, I will just remind you, on the campaign trail, when he used to speak about India's governance, a famous statement he used to use is, "Bharat ko act ki zarurat nahi, Bharat ko action ki zarurat hai." Okay, what he meant to say was, in our country's governance, we are an over-legislated country. So many acts and so many acts and so many acts. And ultimately, one act conflicts with another act. So actually, it stops you from doing things than enabling you to do things. So what I meant to say was, I'm yielding to his next question, which is, I know where you're coming from in terms of the treaty, which needs to be renegotiated. But I, for one, believe that even beyond that treaty, there are a lot of things we can do practically, which doesn't get bound by the treaty. Why I'm saying so, any treaty which has to be renegotiated will have to go through layers of discussion, examination at both levels. The bureaucracy will be involved, the legal teams will be involved, and you know that despite the best intentions of the political leadership, there will be tremendous institutional resistance on both sides, also on our side more so, to change the existing paradigm. So, it is not to say that because Mr. Modi is a fresh kid on the block, he'll say, oh, come on, all bureaucracy, go to hell, I'll do this. No, it won't happen that way, right? He will also have to be respectful and understanding of the bureaucratic sentiments. So my point is, we must look at that issue, but we should not hold the entire relationship hostage to a particular treaty. The treaty must be renegotiated, relooked at rather, revisited, but there are a lot of things we can do which beyond the treaty, which we must start doing to build confidence between India and Nepal. Because confidence building measures are measures on the ground. If you do things which people can see, people will trust it. People will say yes. What is being said about India, maybe it was true in the past, maybe not. But now we see a different India. So Mr. Modi's focus is, let us look at legislation later. Let us look at enabling issues first. And that's why he says, in fact, if you remember, he told Prime Minister Koirala, pick projects which are short-term in duration. Let us complete the project in 2 or 3 years. People will see the benefits, and people's goodwill will help us take this relationship to a higher level. If we link it with bureaucracy and legal teams, unfortunately, we will go around in circles. Okay, so that's important.
Okay, Mr. Karki, let me put forward a question on related to the answer Dr. Parulekar has given actually. So do you think, will there be any day no anti-sentiment or no slogans will be chanted so far against India? That time, all political parties will come to common consensus and they will work for their national interest. And at the same time, they will think about their neighboring country as well, a kind of like a mutual benefit. And there will be, that kind of brotherly mood or brotherly relationship between India and Nepal. And we will say that now we are together, we are working for common agenda, common kind of like benefits kind of things. Will there be any day on behalf of political parties of Nepal?
See, to be a true nationalist in Nepal, it doesn't mean that you have to go against any individual country. You can be nationalist in very positive sense. So, one thing is there, so many things are due in queue regarding his visit. Nepal was promised to obtain so many benefits from Mahakali Treaty that is due in the paper. Some area is there that has to be completed. So there are so many things in the pipeline that should be completed, and India can do it. And it can give a positive gesture by completing those due things. And in the case of Nepal, because in such a transitional period, the leader of integrity is quite essential. The leader of integrity is quite essential. And now, political parties in Nepal will try to come together and reach to a common conclusion.
Mr. Karki, how long do you think will it take to bring all political parties together and then say that this is our common national interest and we will work for that?
See, we all have to initiate in different levels. This is also one platform, that we are doing it to make a consensus before our friend, though he is here. But many such programs are taking place in different levels, from people level. Because since India is a big country, a vast country and emerging power, the peoples to peoples level relation is quite necessary to enhance this relation, to strengthen our relation, and to put forward the interest of Nepal. Because the small countries, India should realize the psychology of small countries, small members. That has already been raised also. See, in this period, we saw that no neighbor is happy with India. Even in the case of Bhutan, you just mentioned about Bhutan, but the fuel were just subsidies. The problem was there with Bhutan also. So, how can you be a superpower? How can you?
Yes.
Let me conclude. We just want to say our friend in India that how can you play a pivotal role, a vital role in international politics if you are engaged, if you are quarreling with your small neighbors. How can you go and play that vital role? So we want India, China should play an important role in international politics, and for that they should keep a very good relation with their neighbors.
My question to you, Mr. Karki, was like, when will political parties of Nepal stop fighting, quarreling among themselves, and then come to a common consensus to talk to their neighboring country that this is our agenda and we'd like to have discussions on that part? Will there be any day?
In a multi-party democracy like ours, this political, skirmishes, political debates are always there. But despite that, we should come together for our national interest. And this type of tradition, we should start in Nepal.
But how long will it take to start?
Now, it has been urgent because of strong leadership of India. He is leading such a party which has a majority. A single party has come in a majority in India after 60 years, I think. A single party has come, emerged as an opposition to the previous Congress. So this time it has been, we can feel now the pressure to start such a dialogue among the political parties in Nepal and to reach to a conclusion.
Okay, again let me pass the microphone to our audience, please. And we expect the questions should be quite genuine and try to address the question, the topic that we are going to talk about today. So can I please request you to pass the microphone? Anybody, is that okay?
Thank you. Prime Minister,
Would you please introduce yourself?
this is Prabhu Yadav. I come from Nepal Council of Foreign Affairs. Prabhu Yadav. My query is that why Modi, the present government of the Prime Minister of India, willing to visit Nepal at the first 10 years, first years, while the Manmohan Singh, on his 10 years of his governments, never did not land in Nepal. So what's the difference between the both governments? While both governments is there in India, but the first Modi is willing to, what's the benefit will take, or what's the dialogues between the neighboring countries between? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Parulekar, what do you like to say about this?
Again here, since this question really asked me to compare two prime ministers, the previous and the current one, this may not be construed as a BJP position, okay, because it's really not a partisan kind of thing. Every prime minister is India's prime minister, and we take pride in whoever prime minister we have. But if I were to do an academic understanding to answer your question, there are 2 or 3 issues here. Firstly, the governance style of these two individuals. If you look at the background of Dr. Manmohan Singh, it's been a combination of being an academic and then being a bureaucrat. He has cut his teeth in academics at the highest level, and then as a bureaucrat or a policy official with the World Bank and the IMF, and then within the Ministry of Finance. So he was somebody who in a sense was pretty much driven by the bureaucratic style of functioning, number one. In contrast to that, Mr. Modi has been a dynamic chief minister of a robust state in India, namely Gujarat, for more than a decade. And in that governance style, if you have observed very closely, he was a very hands-on chief minister. He was a chief minister who was decisive. He was a chief minister who, if required to make interventions, is to make interventions proactively, number one. Number two, in India, like in America, for instance, they say, who makes a good president? Ideally, the person who makes a good president is a person who has been governor of some state in America. Because when you are governor of some state, you get the best chance to have actually dealt with nuts and bolts governance. In the case of Dr. Manmohan Singh, barring his stint as Minister of Finance in those important years, his actual nuts and bolts governance knowledge was extremely limited. Mr. Modi has dealt with a state which has a maritime border with Pakistan. In fact, he has once very famously said, Gujarat mein kya hai? Ek jagah Registan, dusri jagah Pakistan. He used to make that famous comment in a kind of jest and humor. But what he was pointing out was, I am the chief minister of a state in an adverse situation. So he exactly understands the psychology of dealing with borders, dealing with frontiers between his state and a foreign state. And that is why these two things, a proactive prime minister and a prime minister who has been a chief minister with experience of dealing with border issues, he understands the importance of neighbors in the vicinity. And that is why, if you see, he has given extreme importance to his neighborhood, and even within neighborhood, he's been extremely enlightened. He is already focused on the Himalayan neighborhood, right? Because he is looking at the eastern corridor of India extremely significantly. I mean, let no mistake be there. Modi is no Santa Claus, is he? He's not. Nobody's Santa Claus in international relations. So I'm not trying to tell you that Modi is coming with goodies for everybody. Modi is coming with a genuine intent of goodwill towards Nepal. And he will tell the Nepalese people, let bygones be bygones, let's script a new chapter. But what you will find in me is a person willing to make a fresh start. I'm looking forward to a viable partner on the Nepalese side because I respect Nepalese democracy, right? And let us both together work for the benefit of Nepal, and a strong, democratic, prosperous Nepal will be a strong, prosperous eastern corridor for India, which in terms means benefit for India. And if India and Nepal benefit, South Asia has to benefit. Right? It's a progressive idea. Let's give it a chance.
Since we are talking about getting more concentrated on significance of Modi's visit in the context of making the bilateral relation more beneficial. So, Mr. Karki, now, what do you think? What issues need to be put forward in front of Modi so that you will discuss, you will think upon it, and then try to help to maintain the relationship much better in the days to come? What do you think? What agendas need to be put forward when Modi comes? Listens to it, tries to settle it out, and then there will be no anti-sentiments kind of things in the days to come. What are the things that you think would be put forward?
Previously also I mentioned that since we are in this transitional juncture, we don't have to, because the leadership should not sign any treaty in a hush-hush manner, So now there are so many things that is to be bring in reality. I already mentioned about the Mahakali Treaty. Whatever benefits we were promised, that has not been fulfilled. There is Chamelia. Indian leadership had assured us that, like a goodwill gesture, we will complete this Chamelia. And there are so many projects that India has initiated but yet to be completed. That should be done first. So that will give a good impression among the Nepalese people also. And we will continue this political dialogue, political relation, so that we can have, we can just open a door, political door, to start a new era of relation. Otherwise, he also already mentioned, it was just, we are just feeling that only bureaucracy exists in India, for Nepal. Because there are no political relation, no political presence. So this will be a door opening. This visit will be a door opening for political relation and in other fields also.
Dr. Parulekar, because let me take the privilege of your statement as you said that you are speaking in your personal capacity. So do you think time and again India is very much concerned about the security issues, right? And say like, counterfeit currencies, like, penetration of third world people who directly or indirectly kind of harm India itself, its security. So do you think India need to, like, this time, it's very important to sit together, sit together and then have discussions on those issues. Because Modi is coming here, and then these issues need to be settled out as soon as possible, so that can even help build better relationship in the days to come.
In fact, you asked a very interesting question, because I see parallels in Modi's approach regionally to what he's doing also internally in India. One of the main concepts which have been very close to his heart, even within India, has been the federal structure. He believes in federalism. And he has talked about cooperative federalism, wherein if there are issues between states, talking within India, he has said that the center will not dictate terms to states. We will sit with chief ministers and jointly address these problems. The same approach he is taking to outside India and to his neighborhood. He has indicated already, in whatever little time he has had, is that he would like to explore every mechanism which will involve joint management of security problems. One realizes that there have been certain lingering issues with regard to our security presence. Okay, I'm not going into whether right, wrong, all those things. That is for the different people to decide. But the bottom line is, whatever may have been the past, it is very important for us to identify these problems as being common problems. For us to be able to then sit down and develop joint mechanisms to address these problems. For instance, it remains a fact, I don't think we can be oblivious to say that yes, there was a time and there has been a time when the ISI has tried to exploit the open border between India and Nepal to be able to infiltrate people. I think, closing our eyes to it also will not be the right thing, because that will also keep us in a fool's paradise. That doesn't mean that every Nepali or every person coming across the border should be seen with suspicion, or that we should have an intrusive presence. I'm not saying that. But the point is, if we do identify that terrorism is an issue, if we do see that counterfeit currency is an issue that hurts both our countries, then we have to develop joint mechanisms at managing these problems. And to that extent, I can tell you, to the extent possible, the security footprint of India would rather be replaced by our ability to help capacity building. I think Modi ji is very high on this, that if there are countries in our neighborhood who have institutional deficit in terms of capacities, we would be very happy to help them develop their own capacities. So for instance, Nepalese police can become much more efficient at dealing with its own problems than we having to tap them. We could help them in terms of reform. We could help them in terms of training. We could help in terms of intelligence sharing, right? That will help your own country deal with these problems, which in effect will not come to us, and that will be a very harmonious way by which we can deal with security problems. So he is more along these lines of looking at joint management and joint execution of these projects, which respects Nepal's sovereignty and territorial integrity, and yet addresses our core security concerns.
To what extent do you think the hindrances will appear in bringing those management into practice so far?
See, obviously, the fact is we've not had these mechanisms in place. So when you try and reinvent the wheel, there are always status quo people. Whenever you try and change a system, the biggest pressure that you face, institutional pressure, is from whom? It's from what we call as the status quoists. That means those who have been long-time beneficiaries of a certain system and don't want the system to change. Because the system changes, their beneficiary status will go away. Now that exists on both sides, and I'm not in the least denying that it exists on our side as well. So this will be a major hurdle, but if anybody is in a position to clamp down on these structures, okay, and reform them radically, it is a man like Mr. Modi, because he has the proven reputation of being a radical reformer. I could give you endless stories of how he has dealt with some very, very seemingly insurmountable problems in Gujarat like this. many areas of corruption which we would say, oh, this is a terrible situation, how will Mr. Modi get past? No chief minister can deal with it. Just by including technology, and mind you, why I'm making this matter is because you will hear it in Nepal as well. He is an extremely big fan of technological intervention because he believes that these problems crop up when you allow human discretion. Technology is a big panacea because technology takes away the element of human discretion. And when it takes away the element of human discretion, technology is secular to everybody. Right? Technology doesn't see gender, doesn't see, whatever, rich or poor, whatever it is. And he has been able to institute technological intervention in many areas of governance which has been able to do away with corruption on a large scale. So, even on security issues, you can have better border management through technology. You can have better fencing, you can have better policing. You can make police smarter. And I don't mean dress code. I say smarter in terms of being able to have cutting edge tools. Right? All of that is something which he is a big fan of. And I'm sure if he finds a leadership, which I have no reason to believe he will not, if he finds that same kind of leadership on the Nepalese side, in due course of time, I think these issues can be resolved with mutual respect, sensitivity, and respect for shared sovereignty.
Thank you so much. Once again, now let me put the microphone into this space. If you are there to ask questions, please. Yeah. Again, I kindly request you to introduce yourself before you question.
Dr. Dattesh को लागि र चाहिँ रामकाजी सरले जाने प्रश्न छ सरले अब कुरा राख्नुभयो आर्थिक क्रान्तिका अब त्यसपछि कङ्क्रिट त्यसपछि डेभलपमेन्टका कुराहरू गर्नुभयो हैन तर हामी बीचमा एउटा चाहिँ के छ भन्दाखेरि सीमाको ठुलो विवाद छ नेपाल र इन्डियाको त्यो सीमा विवाद नसुल्झाइकन अरु चाहिँ आर्थिक मुद्दाहरुमा अरु राजनीतिक मुद्दाहरुमा अरु धार्मिक सामाजिक मुद्दाहरुमा जाँदाखेरि के हामीले सफलता पाउन सक्छौं
I think it's a good question. There's no doubt that the border is an important question, right? Because sometimes these are fundamental issues which if not addressed, they can have a psychological lingering effect, right? So I'm not in the least suggesting that we should be oblivious or give it short shrift. But what I'm saying is there can be innovative solutions to even the border issue. One is of course a mutual amicable demarcation of the border. At least that gives you that entity of sovereignty and your territorial frontiers. But more than that, I think the problem really is that we've had an open border and both sides have been beneficiaries of it. Do we want to clamp it down totally and hunker ourselves down? Or do we want to have innovative management of the border whereby we see that the border can become an agent for change? And I'll give you an example. When Nathula Pass was opened in 2005, who did it benefit the most? See, any border, we often think of border in terms of people sitting in the capital. So sitting in Delhi, I will think of my border with China. But ultimately, who does that border matter? That border matters to people who live on both sides, the immediate sides of the border. Because most of the time, it's the political economy on either side of the border which is the most important thing. So if that is our concern, then I think we have to look at innovative solutions and localized solutions, wherein we make those people on both sides of the border stakeholders, right, in resolving this issue. This is not only an issue between Kathmandu and Delhi. I think we should understand that this border has a certain economic dividend for both sides. And so in any solution of this border, while we respect the sovereignty of one another, we must also look at localized solutions that treats this border as an agent of change and also treats this border as some kind of a human development kind of issue. But I don't believe that because we have not settled the border, we have to hold everything hostage. If India and China can do business, I don't know if you've been following international affairs, but in the last couple of days, Mr. Modi has met his Chinese president, Xi Jinping. And in the last 5 weeks, I can tell you, something amazing has happened. When Wang Yi, the foreign minister of China, visited Delhi, he was scheduled to meet Mr. Modi for 15 minutes. He had an hour and 10 minutes long conversation with Mr. Modi. Of course, it startled many people. 70 minutes time was given to, foreign minister of China. That is the importance Mr. Modi attaches to an important country. right? What we do between India and China will have a positive effect, not just on Asia Pacific, but particularly Nepal, other regional neighbors. So the way in which things are moving forward shows you that let us not get psychologically bogged down in the border. We should work on it, work urgently on it, but let us look at cooperative relations that have people-to-people impact. That will be my submission.
Now, Mr. Karki, what would be your answer to this question?
निश्चय नै अब त्यो धेरै कुरा त उहाँले पनि भन्नुभयो कि मतलब बोर्डरको इस्युलाई अब हामीले जहाँ उठाउनु पर्ने हो, सरकारले जहाँ उठाउनु पर्ने हो, सम्बन्धित ठाउँमा उठाउने कुरा पनि एकातिर छँदैछ कि बोर्डर कहाँ कहाँ इन्क्रोच भएको छ। किनभने बोर्डरबाट उहाँले भने जस्तै सबभन्दा सताएको के छ भने ती बोर्डरकै छेउको मान्छेहरू हुन्छन्। एउटा चाहिँ म यो चिजको यसलाई उपयोग गरिहालौँ, यसको लागि पनि मैले उपयोग गरौँ कि काठमाडौँको जुन सत्ताधारीहरू छन् उनीहरूले कहिले पनि त्यो बोर्डरमा बस्ने मान्छेहरूलाई राम्रो बुझ्न सकेन। जस्तो धोती लगाएको, कुर्ता लगाएको त्यो मान्छे देख्न साथ उसको नेसनलिटी के होला भन्ने कुरा, तर सबभन्दा बढी नेसनलिस्ट काम उनीहरूले गरिरहेका छन्। जसको सुस्तामा जब केही हुन्छ, गडबडी हुन्छ अथवा माने भन्ज्याङमा कुनै गडबडी हुन्छ, त्यो खबर दौडेर ल्याउने पहिला सिडिओका नवलपरासीमा रहेको सिडिओका दौडेर ल्याउने काम ती बस्ने मान्छेहरूले गर्छन्, जसलाई हामी मधिसे भन्छौँ, ती मान्छेहरूले गर्छन्। त्यसैले काठमाडौँले त्यो कुरा पनि बुझ्नुपर्छ, आफ्नो जनताको चाहनाहरू बुझ्नुपर्छ र जहाँ राख्नुपर्ने हो इन्डियासँग त्यो ठाउँमा राख्नु पनि पर्यो। प्लस ती अड्केर बस्न भएन, उहाँले पनि भन्नुभयो अरू पोजिटिभ स्फेयर कहाँ कहाँ छ त जहाँ हामीले चाहिँ म्युचुअल अन्डरस्ट्यान्डिङ डेभलप गर्न सक्छौँ, जहाँ अरू चाहिँ ओपन अप गर्न सक्छौँ, त्यो ठाउँ पनि खोज्नुपर्छ।
All right, any other questions? Yes, please. I think one at a time. Only one question. No, yes. Only one question. Yeah. Could you please pass question there to that microphone there?
Thank you very much. Myself, B.K.S. Jaiswal, and working as a marketing officer in Orbit International. First of all, let me welcome Mr.Dattesh Parulekar in the land of Putalisadak. Okay. So my question is that currently BRIC nation established a common bank worth 100 billion rupees. So is it possible in SAARC nation?
Yeah, in fact, if you have seen Mr. Modi's speech yesterday, a few things have emerged. One of them is the BRICS Bank. Now, just spare a thought. The BRICS Bank idea was conceived of in 2012 when the BRICS leaders met in Delhi, right? 2 years later, it is reality. So it tells you that we don't have to look only at Western societies to be able to see these great models of development. If emerging economies, and why I say so, look at them, they are 5 countries from 4 different continents, right? 4 different contextual narratives. South America, Africa, Eurasia, and below. If they can get together within 2 years and carve out something as innovative as a BRICS Bank, I think we in South Asia, if only we can develop a common approach, right? If we can look at regional identity in a more cohesive manner, things like a South Asian bank would be a necessity. Of course, the intricacies and nitty-gritties would be very difficult to argue because obviously what will happen if you put a bank in place, the corpus funding is important, right? And as you've seen, everybody is putting in $2 billion, but everyone knows that China is going to have a significant heft and clout within the overall BRICS Bank. After all, you're a function of an economic strength. Now, here I would not call for a South Asian bank right away because this will again create more suspicions. It will be seen as a project India is trying to insert because India is the one country with the maximum economic power. So people will say, oh, look, they want to create a funding agency and from there they will fund projects, okay? And then again we'll get to these issues. I think let us look at smaller issues. See, I'll tell you, regionalism is best undertaken to an incremental approach. We can't rush into issues. For example, at the SAARC level, we have a SAPTA, right? SAARC, despite being around for 30 years, what is its achievement to show for? I think it's a sad commentary. Let us look to revive SAARC. Let us look to revive smaller agreements in SAARC. Let us resolve bilateral issues and move to a regional free trade agreement. Then we can think of a bank, we can think of a monetary union, we can think of a union later on. But let us not pitch ourselves too far. let's take a very realistic approach that these issues are easier said than done. I'm telling you, experiences have shown over-optimism can kill projects. I'm still very cautious about the next SAARC summit at Kathmandu, as and when it happens. Because Mr. Modi has talked about having a roadmap which is going to articulate for the SAARC nations. But we have to be very careful because we have seen too many false starts. One act of terrorism, God forbid, should not happen. But God forbid if something happens from Pakistan into India, your entire SAARC thing is going to be floundering. Because again it will go back to India, Pakistan, ding dong, and the whole SAARC process will be held hostage. So my point is, let us take up this offer Modi ji has given. Let us do individual projects. We will build confidence. And I think as we build confidence, then most of these things which we need can definitely happen down the road. But let's be more realistic and cautious about our estimation.
Thank you so much. Could you please pass microphone here? Okay, I would be happy enough if you try to make your question, relate your question to the topic that we are having discussed tonight.
I'm a student. My question to Mr. Karki, do you think that the people who term themselves as the hardline communists and some people term themselves as the more democratic can come together more same common interest regarding the national interest, regarding the relationship between Nepal and India, even to attract the Indian investor to the Nepal, while the even more leader of the political parties are against of the PPAR treaties with India, and same to the Mr. Dattesh, Dr. Dattesh, as they were saying that the relation between Nepal and India is roti se beti tak. Is the Modi's visit to Nepal can address the issues regarding the ground level people of Nepal and India, who are not the general people of Nepal and India, not regarding the fulfillment of the desire of the high level of people, political leaders.
Thank you, sir. Okay, would you expect your answer from Mr. Karki first or Mr. Dr. Parulekar?
First from Mr. Karki.
See, political ideology is invented or developed to emancipate the people from subjugated condition. All ideology, political ideology or religious ideology, they are intended to free the people, to free the common man. So, political ideology is inferior when we talk of mankind. So, we don't take any political ideology as an inferior, because all political ideology has a time, it has a, the new political ideology replaces the old ideology. So the mankind is first. And in the case of Nepal, we are patriotic, we are nationalist. We join political party to emancipate the Nepalese people from this downtrodden condition. So our main aim, main motto is to liberate the people from all difficulties, all subjugation. So for that cause, we are ready to shake hands with anybody. So India is our close neighbor. Even though we have so many political and ideological differences, but we are a neighbor and we have to deal with it. Let our differences be there. We can clearly say that we are a communist. Our ideology is to spread communism all over the world. And he is BJP. He has a particular ideology, cultural nationalism, whatever we say. So we have a differences, but we are neighbors. We have to deal. And for the benefit of people of India and Nepal, we have to work. Let them be nationalists, because a nationalist in India, if a man in India, if a citizen in India who loves Indian people, he will have a good relation with these people. because that will ultimately help to take the issue to the final curve.
Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Parulekar, what do you want to say?
Yeah, just to seek a clarification, if I got you right, what you're trying to say is that whether Mr. Modi will focus on projects which have popular resonance and not elite issues, right? Or are you trying to ask me whether Mr. Modi will intervene in political issues of Nepal?
Not only the political issues, but I would like to say that is his visit can going to address the local level problem of Nepal and India?
What kind of local level?
General people problem, not only
the
See, as a matter of fact, it is our stated position that whatever issues are internal to Nepal shall stay within the boundaries of Nepal. We can have certain affinity, we can have certain solidarity, but that is where our support ought to stop, right? Because if we respect Nepal's sovereignty, then we must also respect Nepal's right, its democratic and political right, to debate these issues within themselves and to find solutions to them. Because it is not that only, you talk of marginalized people, that are only in Nepal. You can go to any part of the world, you will find marginalized people. If we start this process of trying to appropriate for ourselves a role which has not been sought by the government, right? It will be a kind of can of worms. It's a slippery slope. So Mr. Modi is very clear on that. He will not address any of these issues because, for the simple reason, we respect Nepal's ability to take its own decisions. If Nepalese polity, Nepalese society, Nepalese government were to articulate a certain request to us that we would like you to help, we could consider that. But he is not going to speak on these issues in terms of those. However, having said that, if you look at the project, see, he would like to believe that the best way to deal with a lot of local issues is to empower the people. Empowerment is very important. Even some of the most marginalized problems can be resolved. For instance, even in China, a time came when the Chinese Communist government turned pragmatic, right? They understood that while they will retain their political communist ideology with fervency, they will do a certain regulated opening up of their economy. Did they do it for their own selves? No. They did it because they knew that their aspirational society's aspirations have to remain. And they have done a pretty good job of that. Similarly, he believes that projects, which is why he has said, let Nepal come up with local projects, the funding issues, the technical issues, the infrastructure issues, we need to help them, right? Let there be an internal debate within different parts of Nepalese society and let them come up with projects. So he would like to stick to those issues without getting into the political issues, because that is just not done as a good neighbor.
Since our effort is to work on strengthening the relation between Nepal and India, now let me try to ask you maybe the last question I guess, Mr. Karki. So what agendas need to be put forward to be very specific in a very short answer so that Modi's visit will be so much productive and constructive?
See, the due issues should be resolved, that will be solved first. And we'll take it as an initiation, as a beginning, not the end of the process. It will be a good beginning. We Nepalese have to take it as a good beginning. So, in different matters, in different field, we can have discussion with Prime Minister Modi.
Okay, Dr. Parulekar, similar question. Since we expect this significant visit has to be significant, and what issues do you think on behalf of India itself has to be put forward so that the relation that has been historical and multidimensional it is considered so far can be further strengthened?
This issue can be addressed at two levels. One is a more thematic kind of level, where I think the sense has to resonate that our people-to-people contact over the years, over millennia, has created a huge reservoir of goodwill. Now it is for us to see how that reservoir of goodwill translates into action on the ground, right? Merely saying that our relations are unique, cultural, civilizational, these are epithets. How do we translate these epithets into real action on the ground? And for that, economic relations is very important. Infrastructural connect is very important. Meeting the common aspirations of young people in Nepal, in India is very important. And all along, trying to achieve this and accomplish this through the principles of good neighborly relations, mutual respect, accommodation, but yet believing that we are in it together and we have to find solutions together. I think that approach, if it comes, and I think that's a very constructive approach, and there is no reason to believe otherwise. I mean, you might for a while think that is this guy trying to be romantic? I'm not. I'm all the time saying we are realistic, but there is definitely a person in India with whom you can do business. Now we want to see at the earliest, and we wish Nepal well, that this, this delicate process which Nepal is going through, it can come out triumphant at the earliest possible opportunity. So we have a leadership that we can do business with, and our two leaderships and two societies can take our relationship forward for mutual benefit.
Okay, thank you so much. Before I sign out, I'd like to thank AIDA for giving me this opportunity to work as a moderator. And at the same time, I would like to extend my gratitude to Orbit International Education, who has created this platform to bring the international issues front and start having dialogue to make the relation between and among other countries much better. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malla. Now, can we please do that after the program? I'd like to invite Mr. Radheshyam to present a token of love to our guest on behalf of Orbit. Now we've come to the end of our program. Thank you everyone for being a part of our monthly dialogue. And thank you to our respected guests for being open to interaction and being very interactive. We hope to see you next month or in the upcoming year, where we'll continue to have our dialogue on international affairs. Please do keep in touch with AIDIA. Thank you everyone.